to the next level.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Coach Tiffany Parra, Editor-in-Chief of Fitness Fanatics Magazine, elevating your mind, body, and spirit. Again, I am out in these streets today because you know what? Technology was not working for me, but you know what? I don't care about all that. Because when we got a special message, we know how to show up. And we have a very special message for you today on this Wellness Wednesday. So I have a special guest. She is joining me for our second part of our domestic violence awareness segment. Let me go ahead and bring her on in. Hello, and welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you today, sis. Thank you so much for joining us again. I apologize for the little bit of noise today because I am on a busy street here at a Starbucks locally here. But I'm so happy to see you. Please, just real quickly, for those who did not get a chance to meet you when we first started this on October 1st for our Domestic Violence Awareness Month, please share with them who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about your story.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Tiffany. It's so wonderful to be back with you and with the audience. Uh, I'm always happy to take the time to share. I am Lavon Morris Grant. I am out of right now Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm from New Jersey and New York, Jersey City to be exact. Hey, Jersey City. And I have 3 children, and I've been in this work for almost over 30 years. And just a little bit about what we are jumping into today. Tiffany and I got a chance to share, or she allowed me the opportunity to share what happened to me, my trauma, and going through the healing process. And in that trauma, my husband of 10 years shot me 4 times, once in the head, point blank range, and that bullet is still located in my head, the thigh, my buttocks, and my foot, and that bullet is still located in my foot as well. And a long healing process. And my 3 young children at that time, they were 14, 7, and 4, Marquise, Corey, and Sharia. Unfortunately, they witnessed their dad trying to kill me. And he eventually, at some point, once we got out of the house, shot himself once in the head, and he died 2 days later, committing suicide. And I know that's a lot, guys. And here we are. We just jumped right into it. But that's pretty much who I am and how I got here, and still surviving and thriving is the word for me. And I'm just so honored always to have the opportunity to be in space and to uplift other people.
And sis, you truly are thriving out there, and just such a powerful story because to have this happen. I mean, there are so many people that would have just laid down and just gave up.
Yes.
And you know, I just commend you. I commend you because I'm seeing you out there with the pictures that you post. You have recently posted a picture, and I want to say you guys were on a boat. And I said, look at this. I said, you were able to bring yourself out of that, but also bring your children out of that, and them to be able to still thrive and be able to be successful in moving through life and be able to just get through that trauma. So sis, I'm sending hugs, I'm sending high fives, I'm sending it all your way because that is just absolutely amazing, amazing. So I know we talked about last time about the groups that are most impacted by domestic violence. We did share that Caucasian women are the most impacted, but Black women are the ones that are killed the most in this, which that was disturbing to me when I heard that. That was very disturbing to me because I just have to say out there, Black people, we got to do better. We got to do better. Okay. So today, we're going to jump into a little bit a little different aspect of this because domestic violence, it really does impact you in so many different ways. I mean, the in the workplace and again at the home, and you know first off, how did you get involved in this work after going through this trauma? That's the first question before I get into the employee stuff. How did you get involved in this work after going through that trauma and still be out there helping people to get over this type of trauma?
Yeah, that's a great question. And people sometimes get what happened to me backwards. They think I got shot first and then I went into shelter and forward. But in my case, I went into a domestic violence shelter first, where at that time it was, I'm not minimizing it, it was verbal abuse all day. And back then, no one was even talking about verbal abuse. So even though I went into shelter, a domestic violence shelter, I didn't even recognize when the advocates were talking to me that I was a victim, because he never hit me. And again, I want to emphasize, he never hit me until he shot me, but that doesn't minimize what the abuse looked like. So 10 months later, Tiffany, after I had left, and I left New Jersey, our home, and I moved upstate New York with two of our younger children. After he shot me, then 10 months later, I came back to New Jersey to the house to visit and to help get my children ready for school. And the next day, that's when the shooting happened. So just to put that in perspective, so what happened afterwards, because Tiffany, honestly, I I just could not understand how somebody can do that to me or to another person when I had not done anything to you. And so I went on this journey. I guess I didn't know that's what I was doing. I went on this journey, Tiffany, because I kept asking God, how did this happen to me? Like, how did my husband try to kill me? Or why would he want to do that when I have not done anything? Now, to be transparent, back in the day, I was a fighter. And so as a fighter, right, you have to do something for me to react. And so for my husband to literally put a gun to my head, pull the trigger and continue shooting, like, what did I do? And not that I was blaming myself. I was just trying to make some sense of it. And what happened, Tiffany, there's in every state, there's a domestic violence coalition in every state in the country. Some are dual coalitions, meaning they domestic violence and sexual assault. But for the most part, there's a coalition in every state. And so I went straight to the top, mainly because of the drama of approaching my state coalition, or they approached me after I was doing a keynote speech and asked me to join the board. And I didn't know what was what. I joined the board, Tiffany, the New York State Coalition Against Domestic Violence Board, and sat in the room with these powerful advocates. I had no clue what they were talking about. And I knew they were speaking English, but they were speaking a feminist language that I just didn't know. But just to make it shorter, that's how I got involved. I sat in those board meetings. I started going to national conferences. I became the keynote speaker of many of them. And then I had the audacity to write a book. And so at the time, still not understanding how to connect the dots of what it was I was doing, I was just trusting, even though I was suicidal. I want to put that out there. I was still in trauma. I was still trusting somehow the process of what God was calling me to do, even though I wanted God to just let me die. right? But in the meantime, since I'm not dying and I can't figure out how to kill myself, I'm laughing, but it is not funny. I'm laughing at me, not at people who are dealing with serious mental illnesses or issues, because mental health is, oh, it is deep and tough. And I was in that place, trust me. And so now the fact that I can laugh about it just shows for me how much healing has taken place. But so I got involved, Tiffany, to figure out how this happened. But in my getting involved, I got a bigger awareness, right, of how big this issue is, how insidious it is, right, how dangerous and damaging it is to the psyche, to the spirit, to the communities, to the individual. And so though my husband did what he did to me, that impacts all families, right? That impacted our whole family, his family, my family, our children. So the community, it wasn't just narrow to me. So with that, fortunately, here I sit 30 plus years later doing, what I do, and have learned so much and have been a huge advocate, a huge voice for those who don't have a voice.
That is, again, so powerful. Now, tell me, because it's all about mindset, right? It really is. You could have, again, you could have decided, I'm not going to share. You could have decided, I'm just going to just curl up in a ball and just, stay in my room in the dark and all that stuff. What types of things did you do to get yourself on the other side of this? Because there's a lot of people that are dealing with this and they're not able to rise up like you were able to, sis, and are still able to do.
That's a tough question, Tiffany. It's a necessary question. It's tough because one of the things I work to do when I'm bringing awareness, especially sharing my story or what happened to me, right? I I really work hard to not allow my story, my survival, my purpose to overshadow someone else's, right? Because though you all see me today, right, and I look what I look like, because I can do the made up stuff and put on all the things, right, to look normal and happy and all the things we want to project to the world. The women or people who still find themselves in it, I see them as strong too. I see them as surviving and taking, even though they may still be in it, they are doing the best they can with what they have and with what they understand. So for me, mine was just a little different, that I was in therapy almost a year prior to the shooting. Now, in therapy, I began to recognize me again, or finding me for the first time, right? And my voice, and choosing me for healing. And I did want that for my husband. I begged him to come and for us to go to marriage counseling and therapy and all those things. But one minute he say yes, then he say no, but pretty much it was no. He did not go. But I went for me because I just felt it was something necessary. So by the time the shooting happened, I think we were 10 months into therapy, I had gained or garnered some healing tools. But remember, Tiffany, even though I had that, like this happened, now every day I want to commit suicide, right? So going to therapy didn't stop me from not wanting to be alive. It didn't stop me believing that I was not the right person to raise these children. And that's what I kept telling God. That was my running argument with God, was how dare you allow me to live and expect me to be responsible enough and know enough to raise these three people who are totally dependent upon me. And the person who did this, you let him die. You let him off the hook. And now I don't even have pieces, Tiffany, to pick up for my life. I had to create a whole new life. And so the healing process, I wasn't even healing, just going through the process of learning who I was, sticking with the process on days that I quit so many times, trusting the process, even though I cussed the process out, including my therapist. And for the sake of this video, we're not going to say the words I use. So everything was not nice. Healing is messy. Life trauma is messy, Tiffany. So it don't look like this face looks today, right? And I just want to make that so clear. So women who are still in it, they are where they need to be, and hopefully and prayerfully one day they'll survive it and be able to thrive. But for me, I just, God just sent different people in my life, Tiffany, that helped me on different paths of my life. And I attribute that to whatever God had for me. She needed for me to do it like right now. Like it had to be right now. And things were coming real fast, Tiffany, and I was confused. I was in a lot of pain. All the things mentally, I just didn't have it. But I just kept moving. And then one day, one day, and then another day, and then another day, I got stronger. I mean, it took about 5 years, so I don't want to, and I'm still in that process, Tiffany. I'm still healing. Is always a process from different things in life, right? And so yeah, it was just people coming for me when I tried to quit, and oh God, they would come to my house, Tiffany. They would not. I would lay up in the bed crying in deep pain, and looking like my mom had this term that says "who done it and ran." She's always said to us, "You're not going out there looking like who done it and ran." You have to picture what that could look like from a Black mama telling her Black girls, "You're not looking like who done it and ran." But that's what I was looking like. If who done it and ran had a picture of those days, that's what I was looking like, Tiffany. So it wasn't this easy process. It truly was not. It wasn't that I had more strength than the next person, right? Just the fact that God allowed me to survive a bullet to my head, that was huge in and of itself, because that first shot should have killed me. Medically, it should have, right? But, God had a different plan. So I just really want to emphasize for us to have empathy for those who are still in it, who have not found a way just yet. But that's why I stay, because I keep going back. So that they can understand that they matter too, regardless of where they are, and regardless of them never being shot before, but they probably been punched in the eye 50 million times, or their arms been twisted behind their back to where it's been broken, right? That your story is no less than mine.
Or they've been told that they're less than nothing. Let's get into
Let's get into that thing.
That verbal stuff as well, which can cut sometimes even worse, right?
Yes.
But you are so right about just that healing process being a continuous thing. It's just like when you're working out, right? When you want to build muscles or you want to lose weight, you have to stay consistent with that practice. It's the same thing with healing. You have to stay consistent in your healing. You have to surround yourself with people that maybe have gone through something similar to you, that have overcome it. So then you also can have that faith in your ability to be able to do the same thing. Right? And you don't know what people are going through. People, like you said, like you are looking fantastic. And Sharita Lewis here says, "Hello, everyone. You look fabulous, Lavon." And yes, you do. And you know what? And I'm sure throughout all of this, you were showing up. You were looking good. The hair looking good. The clothes, everything on point. People didn't know what you were going through. And I have to say, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people, especially women, out there that are just swallowing it and just showing up every day because they feel like they have to, which that's going to bring me into our next question. And the next subject of this is, when you're showing up and you got to go to work, okay, I was in HR for many, many years, as you guys know, and we would have some situations where people would come in and they're dealing with a domestic violence situation at home. Maybe they're putting on makeup and stuff to try to hide things and whatnot. They're calling out, and the employer that I was with, when we would have those situations, they gave the person grace because they understood and they had a heart, and they said, okay, take all the time that you need. And we're not going to take that from your batch of days. We're just going to give you that time. And here in California, I mean, everything is protected anyway. All the leaves are protected. So, as I say this about employers, do your research any state that you're in, so you
Right.
know what your guidelines are and what those rules and regulations are behind domestic violence, because you don't necessarily have to show up if you don't want to. If you are in a situation and you feel it's detrimental,
Hmm.
you're not going to want to show up for a day of work where you got to put a smile on your
Right.
face and you got to act like nothing's happening. So you have to take that time. And employers have to understand this. So employers that are out there, if you don't have something in place, you need to put
Right.
something in place for your employees that are dealing with this. So in your opinion, Lavon, like, how are the survivors and the community and are the employers impacted by domestic violence in your opinion?
Oh, so Tiffany, a lot of employers don't understand workplace violence. I know workplace violence, people look at it as someone coming into the actual workplace, right, and committing a violent act. But a lot of times, workplace violence is also connected to the violence that's happening to your employee at home and how they show up when they get to work. So, for instance, when you have a high level of people calling out due to domestic violence, you may not know that's why. It impacts productivity, and productivity impacts the bottom line, which is your dollar, right? And people don't connect it. They don't connect it. So one of the things we did some years ago, we made that connection to show employers why it was so important for them to have a domestic violence policy, why it was important for them to understand some of the basics of domestic violence. Because if nothing else, one thing I've learned through this, through all of this advocacy, people understand their bottom line and they don't want anything to come between them and that bottom line. So we understood it wasn't so much that they cared about the employer, the employee, unfortunately, right? We understood that. But that wasn't the point, right? We, not to say we didn't care, but the point was for them to put something in place so that employee, so that woman or that whoever it was felt safe and knew that they were in a culture of a workplace that understood what was happening, and they weren't the ones who were going to be penalized because of the abuse that was being perpetrated on her, right? Because unfortunately in this society, we have a big tendency of blaming the victim, and in a lot of different ways. And so, like, for one instance, in my lived experience, when I had to go for social services because I had no money, and they were going to give it to me, but the lady said I owned a home. She told me if I ever sold the home, the money that they gave me, they were going to take out of my portion. Like, so let's we split 50-50, 100,000. So you get 50, I get 50. Let's say they gave me 20,000. They were going to take 20,000 out of my portion. And I said, you all are crazy. And the other thing, so Tiffany, like I was making, no, my husband and I together, we were making $100,000 way back then. Like that was a lot of money. It's a lot of money today. So you can imagine these two 30-year-old young Black educated people, we were making $100,000 or more a year. And I left that lifestyle. Many people are not leaving that lifestyle. And so the same with the employer, right? So when they are making that kind of money, they are, or their company is making that kind of money or more, they are trying to figure out how to hold on. And especially if I'm one of your better employers, employees, how then do I make it better for Lavon to be able to be productive in this workplace? And not only am I protecting her, but they end up protecting all workers from even other workplace violence, because I know people have seen lately in the news where the men have been showing up when moms are dropping off their kids at school and other places, and they are shooting them on the spot going into the hospital. So Tiffany, imagine that happening. Well, we don't have to imagine, it is happening. The impact on the employees at the hospital, what that does, it disrupts services, right? It slows down the care for other patients who had nothing to do with that. So there are a lot of pieces attached to workplace violence or domestic violence, and how productivity slows down, comes to a standstill, and now it's national news, right? And it's on and on and on. So that's why I mentioned the word earlier, how insidious it is. You know, domestic violence, it does not discriminate. It does not.
You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Now, I know we were talking backstage before we started about one of the employers that you're with, and the really cool idea that they had to be able to help people to report when they're dealing with things like this, because sometimes people don't want to come to HR or their boss. I really, really recommend it, because guess what? Human resources, HR is there for you. So if you just go and knock on the door and say, hey, such and such, I need to talk to you in confidence, they have to have that confidential conversation with you. And it is their duty to make sure that you are safe. So have those conversations. And if you don't have an HR, if it's a small company, have a conversation with the trusted person on the board, the CEO, the CTO, the CFO, whoever that is that you trust. Okay, so I definitely do recommend that, for sure. Oh, we've got a comment from Carol Groom. She says, during this time when the government is cutting mental health help, thank you for pulling the covers back so people can have hope getting through their trauma. Thank you, Carol. So Lavon, so the employer that you were at, so what was it that they did to help people to be able to just have that safety net, that little bit of confidence that they were going to be able to be heard and feel safe.
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily an employer that I was at. It was working with the board, the coalition across the states.
Okay.
Because coalitions, we all talk to each other, right? Of seeing what we can do on a national level, right? To bring conformity for survivors throughout, because each state is different, as you mentioned before, Tiffany. So on a national level, as a state coalition, we talk to other coalitions to talk to the employers in their states, right? So one of the things that we came up with, one of the tips, we came up with a lot of stuff within the hospitals of, so like the hospitals, for instance, started having intake forms that had domestic violence questions on there that wasn't happening before. And then we trained the nurse practitioners or whoever they were that had the first response or the first contact with a survivor that came into the ER. And most of the times, if it's abuse, the abuser came with her to protect, to make sure she didn't say anything. And so we helped the nurse practitioners or the nurses learn how to separate her from the abuser, to make him go wait in another room. So especially if you suspect that there's power and control going on. So that was one. Another thing, a big thing that was so easy to implement, because bathrooms are private. One of the things we helped employers do to help show that they were culturally sensitive to issues, not just domestic violence, but definitely domestic violence, was to put in the bathrooms, all bathrooms, male and female, suggestion boxes or tips, and employees could drop that in there with their names, emails, whatever they wanted to divulge, and the boxes were locked, so only the HR or the employer had access, to what was dropped in those boxes. And then you all as HR folk would have a system in place, a policy, I guess, of how you reached out to those employees, right, that came forward with whatever they came forward with. So those are just some of simple tips, just having your intake forms have 2 or 3 questions about domestic violence on it. And then if she does check yes, then you got to have the policy of what's your next step. Like you can't just see she check yes and then leave her there. Right? And do nothing with it. So now you have to build in another step of whatever that policy is in line with how the organization runs, right? Or how the business runs, so that you not setting yourself up, for a lawsuit. But you can't do nothing if she checks yes. You got to have a next step. And the same thing with HR, right? When you do those suggestion boxes, you have to already have in place, what if this, what if that? So you're not coming up with it on the spot, right? Some things, there may be some things we can't always prepare for, but for the most part, right, you have to have those conversations of what will we do next if Lavon tells us this is happening in her home.
There's always got to have a policy behind it. Always got to have a policy, right? What is it that you're going to do next? So I love that. I love the boxes, and any employers that are out there listening, any even community leaders, if you have a space where people meet together, where they convene, you never know what people are going through. Put those boxes up there and put someone trusted in charge to be the one to go and check those boxes. We have to come together and make sure that this huge issue, this is a worldwide issue. This is not just in my neighborhood, in your neighborhood, in this state, in the United States. No, this is worldwide. And we need to make sure that we are opening our mouths and that we are talking. Again, if you're dealing with something, share it with someone trusted. Get yourself into a circle of, advocates that can help you with resources. There are a ton of resources out there that can help you, your children, to be able to get on the other side so you can succeed and thrive, and not just feel like you are just surviving out here in life. You deserve to thrive. Okay.
I just want to add something to that, Tiffany, when you said about it is global. This is a global pandemic, right? I had to speak in Australia some years ago, and and then I met some South Africans virtually, and it's amazing for me when I talk to people in other countries, regardless of the nationalities, right? Other countries, we are all dealing with the same thing. And it just behooves me that we are okay as a society that people are being killed for an issue around power and control, because I won't allow you to control my life. You take my life, or you feel you can take my life, or you feel that because I'm a woman and I have certain body parts, that it is your privilege, it is your right to rape me, right? It is your right to have me. Because rape, sexual assault is not about sex. And that's where people get it twisted, right? It's not about sex. It is about power and control. And on this segment, if we just don't have time, I don't have time to go into the analysis of breaking that down. I just need to trust me. You could go Google some information, to bring some awareness to yourself. You don't always have to wait for me or a Tiffany to bring this to you. The information is out there, right? 1 in 3 women, I think it's 1 in 4 now, and 1 in 6 men are being abused every day. Like every day, someone. So if you count, Tiffany, that means it has touched all of us, right? At some point in our lives, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, verbally, spiritually, financially, all those pieces. And so, yes, but in other countries globally, it's the same conversations we are having all day, every day. And it really breaks my heart how deep and of a pandemic this is. And we have not yet figured out how to bring an end, to this issue.
Well, that means we just need to continue to have conversations like this, Lavon, so we can keep on just spreading the information, the knowledge, and really helping to empower people to feel like they can tap into that inner power to just save yourself. Save yourself, right? Be your own best advocate in
Yes.
this as well. And sometimes it just takes opening your mouth and saying what you're going through. So, Lavon, are there any final words that you want to give our audience today before we wrap up this part 2 of our 3-part segment during our Domestic Violence Awareness Month?
Wow. Um, I always like when you ask that question, Tiffany, because you know why? I'm never prepared. Because, it's based on where the conversation goes of what the last thing, because it's just so much to say. But I think for today, for people to recognize, yes, this is October, and October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, as well as, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And our color for domestic violence is purple. And I just want you to please understand, domestic violence just does not happen in October.
Right.
It's just the month that we recognize it on a full scale, and you get a lot of onslaught of emails and campaigns and all that going on. This conversation that I'm having with Tiffany, and the last one I'll have at the end of the month with Tiffany, which I'm always excited about. But I do this every day, 365 days of the year. Every day I get phone calls. I help people with housing. Right, there's just so many connections to how domestic violence impacts people's lives. And the last thing I want to say, as always, I use a plug, and I thank Tiffany for my books that I have written. I'm so proud. I'm going to show you all three to this time. So this is the first book, Whom Shall I Fear? A Spiritual Journey of a Battered Woman. The second book is Who Will Speak for My Children? Healing Through the Trauma. And my newest book that came out just 3 weeks ago, When Silence Screams, Maya's Mental Health Story. And you could go to my website at www.lavonmorrisgrant.com, which is www.lavonmorrisgrant.com. And you could purchase all three. You could purchase other merch on the website, or you could send me a note and stay in touch with me. So I would love to continue reaching out and having further conversation. And you could bring me in as your keynote speaker for your next conference or event. So yes.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Lavon. And yes, everybody connect with her. Grab a copy of her books as well. Stay encouraged and inspired by this powerful woman here. I tell you, we've had a couple conversations, and she's like, when she hears me say that she's powerful, she's like, what? I'm like, yes, yes. And I know all y'all can agree out there how powerful this woman is for just taking control of a very, 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 very just tough and really horrible situation, but being able to bring herself as well as her children out. You can follow her and you can see her out there shining so, so bright. So please tap into her. Oh, we have a comment from Sam DeWorth. Miss Morris Grant, a very powerful person who's impacted thousands of lives and businesses. She's the driving force behind my business and my inspiration to grow my company. Thank you for sharing, Sam DeWorth. Thank you. Thank you. So everyone, please connect with her, and also look for her articles and all her information in Phoenix Fitness Fanatics Magazine as well. She is one of our contributing writers and content providers, so definitely look for that. If you haven't subscribed yet, you want to subscribe at Phoenix Fitness Fanatics mag2021.com, and you can see us there. So thank you so much, Lavon, for joining me. I cannot wait for our next segment on the 29th. So everybody tune in to that, and we will see you next time. Have an amazing day. Take care, and happy Wellness Wednesday. Bye-bye.